The Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms has submitted its progress report on reviewing tax laws and regulations to President Bola Tinubu. The President has now directed the immediate implementation of the report across federal ministries, agencies and departments. The objective is to achieve a minimum 18% tax to GDP ratio within 3 years, with the committee expected to fulfill its mandate within 1 year. It proposed an economic intervention bill and presidential executive orders for efficient resource management. State House correspondent Adesowa Omoran reports.
In the bustling economic landscape of Nigeria, businesses face a complex web of taxation challenges that demand attention and innovative solutions to untangle. The multiplicity of taxes often results in confusion, increased compliance costs, and potential for tax evasion. To address these issues, President Bola Tinubu initiated a Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee in August of this year, with the aim of simplifying tax laws, removing business obstacles, and establishing an efficient tax structure to boost government revenue. After over 2 months, the committee has now presented its progress report.
After listening to a presentation by the committee chairman, the president directed the special advisor to the president on policy coordination to liaise with the secretary to the government of the Federation and the chairman of the Tax Policy Review Committee to ensure that the recommendations of the committee are swiftly and immediately implemented across all ministries, departments, and agencies.
There's so much work for us to do. This is just, milestone number 1 is what we call the quick wins.
There are clear indications that excessive taxation and burdensome regulations hinder business growth and deter foreign investment.
Think about young Nigerians, many of them very smart and intelligent, but today we have legal and tax impediments that will not allow global organizations to hire Nigerians in Nigeria to work within the global value system. We will remove those impediments so that people can then gain employment and dollars while they're here in Nigeria, which not only helps with our foreign exchange management, but ensures that people also have prosperity to live themselves and families from poverty. And of course, they will pay taxes on their income to the government.
Focusing on constitutional reforms to address the current multitude of taxes, which range from around 60 officially to approximately 200 unofficially, is the next phase for the committee.
Those critical reforms involves even rewriting our major tax laws, addressing something that everybody in this room will be very much familiar with, multiplicity of taxes. We have over 60 taxes and levies officially collectible by federal government, state government, and local government. Unofficially, those taxes are over 200, making life difficult for our people. So the objective we have, and that's what we're working towards, is to bring all of that to a single digit. So the taxes at all levels of government combined, we think should be less than 10. Some of the reforms we need to introduce, we have to go to the Constitution itself.
The committee's core mission, centered on fiscal governance, revenue transformation, and economic growth, remains central to Bola Tinubu's administration's pursuit of prosperity. Adesowa Omoran, Arise News.
All right, so we've been talking about the tax, system in Nigeria to expand the tax net and the likes. And here we have now a recommendation from this panel that was set up by President Bola Tinubu. Your take on this?
The first thing will be to commend the president that made a good appointment in Mr. Taiwo Oyedele to drive this particular agenda. The second point will be, again, to commend the team that the president has put together that has been able to get this done. It's unusual in Nigeria when, like Rufai will say, when something is good, let us commend it and say it is good. If it is not good, we will critique it. In this case, they have delivered within the shortest possible time, coming up with a report Normally it will take like 6 months, 9 months, and in fact you forget that there was any committee that was ever set up. Then they will set up a new committee that will look into the work of the previous committee and nothing happens. But in this case, this committee has taken a short time. They've come up with a report, and the president did not waste time in making sure that he sat on it and reviewed it and said, yes, let's activate. So he's given the go-ahead. There's been an instruction, go ahead and begin to implement. So all of that is good, 1, 2, 3 points. So very quickly then, the summation will be the implementation has got to be one that will become as commendable as the planning and strategizing to put the report together. Let the implementation be excellent.
All right, implementation must be excellent. Rufai.
I mean, so we're happy about this because this is what we've always clamored for. We must be able to streamline, but there are so many other things I'd like to say. The report is one thing. It's not as easy as it seems. Then the stakeholders in this system, FIRS, the engagement, what it will be like. I'm happy Mr. Zacchaeus Adedeji is on board with this report. In fact, he was also a member of this committee.
Yes, sir.
So the implementation, 18% tax to GDP ratio is possible. Countries around us do about 16, 15%. I also believe we are collecting a lot of taxes, but a lot of illegal taxes that is not being remitted to the federal. It's not that we're not collecting illegal. All those mama lodger taxes and all of that people are, where's the money going? All the road transport workers' taxes, where's the money going? So there's too many illegal taxes, and the people that are collecting the taxes are close to politicians. So will politicians be able to go against them so that holistically this tax can come into the bar? And you see, we keep saying we want to grow the naira. Productivity is the way. These are part of the things that stop foreign investors from coming because you don't even know who to deal with. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry wears a blue uniform or yellow uniform, and they come to you and they say they want to collect this and this and that. So what will be the stakeholder engagement? I hear they are meeting with MATA, the market women, the traders association, to be able to collect some taxes. And what is going to be that engagement? So that we can bring, if you are to add illegal taxes, we are collecting well close to 20%. But the problem is that most of the money does not go to the federal pocket. So also the processing of the taxes, how easy is it for corporates? That's through the FIRS now, to be able to process and pay its taxes effectively. So this is just one first step. It's a good one in the right direction, but it's not yet uhuru. The implementation, the taste of this will be in the implementation. And that's where you see the real deal of the work that still needs to be done. Because this will also bring about cultural change. If we want to do this effectively, some people that used to collect road transport taxes will have to go out of business. Will the government be ready to push its own out there?
All right, okay, very important point. But it's important, let me go back in terms of how we got here. Earlier in July, the president had announced that he was setting up the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee. And in August 2023, this committee was inaugurated, headed by, I must say, a distinguished leader in the person of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who used to be a partner at PwC. And even from his track record when he served there, that was said to be definitely a square peg in a square hole. His antecedents prove and demonstrate that he was the man for the job. Excellent choice there. And now they have presented, having met, at committee level, presented recommendations to the presidency. The president, the details of the recommendations are not yet out in terms of the fine details of the recommendation. However, a few things have come up from that, which is one of that taxes. They're hoping to harmonize taxes such that we'll have 10 or less than 10 taxes, at federal government level, which is excellent. Because one of the things that we've talked about is multiple taxation and harmonization of taxes, especially for businesses in Nigeria. Another aspect that recommendation will possibly be looking at would be how to ensure that we widen the tax net. So when we come to taxes in Nigeria, the challenge is not the fact that the people are not paying taxes, is that as many people as possible who ought to be paying taxes are not captured in the tax bracket. And so these are some of the challenges I believe they'll be responding to. I think very critical as well is beyond recommendations from a panel that's been set up. I mean, there have been many panels that have been set up. We had a national conference, during President Obasanjo's time. It's not just the recommendation, it's the implementation. And that's why it's important to focus on that. And the president, at least the body language thus far, suggests that they are willing to take this forward and make this priority. In fact, they've said at the next FEC meeting, which hopefully will come up next week, Monday, it would be priority in terms of conversation of the recommendations and how to begin to implement it. He has asked the Special Advisor on Policy Implementation, Hadiza Bala Usman, to begin to look at ways to ensure that at all levels of MDAs, ministries, departments, agencies, they're able to come on. Rufai said something very important, and I'll end on that, a cultural change. The truth is that there must be a lot of sensitization, and people must then see their tax working. It is discouraging if we see, people are paying taxes, but there's no commensurate use of those taxes in terms of infrastructure being built, what the money is being used for, because people, you're asking organizations to pay taxes, then please let the money be judiciously used and let the Nigerian people feel the effect of it. Move on to our next story. The Senate has opened an investigation to uncover how the state-owned oil company, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, spent a whopping 11 trillion naira on various turnaround maintenance projects from 2010 without a single drop of oil from the 4 coal refineries to show for it. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye reports.
Senate returns to plenary on Tuesday, troubled about the huge amount of money spent on reviving Nigeria's cold refineries. Mover of the motion, Senator Karimi Sunday from Kogi West, tells the Senate that the amount of 11 trillion naira spent to repair the refineries in the last 13 years excludes the foreign currency component of $592 million, 4.8 million euros, and 3.4 million pounds spent at various times to bring the refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna back to life. He explains that the amount excludes another $497.3 million for the quick fix repairs of the Warri refinery, awarded to Daewoo Engineering and Construction Limited in June 2022.
When I did my investigation, the Naira input alone is over 11 trillion between 2010 to 2022. Not to even talk of the foreign currency input. We talk of almost $600 million. At another time, turnaround maintenance to other companies, over $2 billion. The one to Daewoo that was signed this year alone, just 2 months to the end of, in February this year, is over $400 and something million.
All of this is as lawmakers lament the collapse of the refineries and the inabilities of governments to make them work. A situation that has left Nigeria at the mercy of exporting its own crude oil and importing them back as refined fuel, spending over 6 trillion naira on fuel subsidy in the last 13 years. It's a burden the current administration says it can no longer bear. The impact of this has come with untold hardship on the people, and to forestall the alleged corruption going on, Senate resolves to investigate all contracts awarded for turnaround maintenance between 2010 and 2023, inviting both past and present managers of relevant government agencies to come forward with explanations and ascertain the progress made so far on the ongoing works in all the refineries.
We are spending all this money on our refinery, and the refineries are not working. So that is why I came up with this motion. The problem we have in Nigeria today is because of the fact that the level of our importation, when we are importing the fuel that we are supposed, that our refineries are supposed to refine and will be using. In the last almost 15 years, we've been importing fuel.
It's an investigation many believe can also expose lapses in the National Assembly's inability to properly oversight the NNPC Limited, even as the Senate nurses the idea of privatizing the refineries to stop the waste of money on repairing the refineries with nothing to show for it. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
This is interesting. Kay, your thoughts on this story?
I'm all mixed up with this because of it. I'm all completely mixed up. The money, 11 trillion, and you have a situation where they're talking about all those things, and meanwhile they are responding to the vehicles that they want to buy. The situation in Nigeria is such that you hear something that is good, it's difficult to focus on that good thing, because there are so many other issues that just is wrapped around it. 11 trillion is a crazy amount of money to imagine that we've used, and we have not seen anything come out of any of these refineries. And these are the same people. Okay, well, I can't remember the percentage of those members of the Senate who were there in the previous term in office, and the new ones, I'm sure somebody will check and remind us what's the number. We know that the numbers were decimated. A lot of them lost the election, whether in the primaries or in the election itself. But the key issue here is we've lost so much money. The government has got to do something. All of this turn around that we're not turning anywhere, we're not getting any result. It's got to stop. We've got to find a solution to our refineries. We can't be one of the largest producers of crude and end up not refining. It doesn't make sense. It defies logic, absolutely defies logic. So my expectation is that the federal government will do something and do it just as quickly as they have tried to fix the issue of tax. They will very quickly fix the issue of refinery in Nigeria. We're still waiting for Dangote refinery to start functioning, but we have to fix the one that the government has spent 11 trillion plus on. Let's fix this. Let's have the solution. And the Senate has got to take some action beyond just talk. All
right.
So, beyond just talk, except this government prove me wrong, this will just end up like another off-the-mic scenario, NDDC, where we don't go anywhere. It's obvious with all of this that there are a lot of people in the NNPC that don't want the country to work, that don't want the refineries to work. Probably because they enjoy the largesse of the money they don't remit from the sales of the crude swap. So, maybe, I'm not the crude swap now. What I want to say is that the crude set aside, the 455,000 barrels per day set aside, so that they used, to now sell out. Now, the crude is supposed to be for our local refineries. So probably because they enjoy the largesse from it, they don't want the refineries to work. It's obvious. And that's why I kept on saying that President Tinubu, if he was ready to make Nigeria work, before he even called for subsidy removal, he should have audited the shenanigan that's going on in the NNPC. But he didn't do all of that. He just pulled out subsidy. So the cycle of corruption continues. And that's why we don't get anything out of it. That's why we're all a charade and a joke. The president now is saying Port Harcourt Refinery will work in December. We are waiting for that to work. But he forgets that Mr. Timi Silva, former energy petroleum minister of state, said the same thing last year. So we've become a joke in the country. And this is the elite class. Because these are the so-called very high-flying rich Nigerians that come together in this scam against Nigeria. This is another P&ID. Is it people like you and me that could do the P&ID scam? No. It's Nigerians high up there in government, civil servants, with their cronies and all of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the country of corruption that we have built. And we've also built a culture of corruption. Our refineries, 100 trillion spent, nothing to show for it. Nigeria, we hail thee. Why we keep importing fuel at the expense of a high dollar and suffering the Nigerians. Nigerians, that's your country. But after all of this, if you like, don't vote properly. you will reap the reward of your votes. God bless you.
All right, so yesterday, the Senate, presided by the Deputy Senate President, Mr. Barau Jibrin, set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the contracts awarded for the repair of refineries in the past few years. And this came about because Senator Sunday Karimi from Kogi West, representing Kogi West, had moved a motion about the amount of money that had been spent on these refineries, and yet these refineries had existed they're still moribund. They're not producing anything. In fact, they are presenting a loss. So we have had losses even though money has been pumped in. Put in context, this 11 trillion naira that has been spent is half of the budget of Nigeria's budget for this year. Half. So we're pumping money into refineries. We are awarding contracts. When I say we, I mean the government. Nigeria is pumping money into refineries that are not working. And that's why in many quarters it's been said that the actions or the activities of NNPCL must be investigated. And we're not talking about just because a number of senators supported him, Senator Adams Oshiomhole, Senator Aliero, some senators from different constituents supported this motion. But Rufai, I'm glad you talked about the NDDC investigation. Where has that brought us? Where has that gotten us to today? Someone fainted, or we have fainting episodes. We have drama when that is if they eventually show up, before the committees to answer questions, and a lot is shrouded in secrecy. We talk about losses made by crude oil theft. We talk about losses made by, sabotage in many areas, and now we also talk about the fact that internally contracts are awarded. So a few questions I'd like to ask, and perhaps when when NNPCL comes before that committee, number one, what is the process of awarding these contracts? Was due process followed? Number two, what has happened in that interim? What justified, year in, year out, putting money into a project that is not working? What is the justification for that? Number three, why can't these refineries work? What is the problem? Is it that they are beyond redemption such that there's no hope for refineries to work? Because why would the NNPCL invest in a private refinery when they have not yet fixed the existing, or when we have refineries, 4 refineries existing that hasn't been, fixed? Why would we move on to a new project when the old ones is like, you always talk about the treatment given to the wife previously would be meted out on the new one. So if we're not able to maintain the old, why rush into the new? So a number of questions. I am happy that the ad hoc committee has been set up, but we will be happier as a people if this committee is productive, is fruitful, brings up something tangible, and not just a show of, drama, and then afterwards it dies a natural death in terms of outcomes. Let us clean up the rot in NNPCL, and we might begin to see a more productive sector in terms of how much we maximize our oil in Nigeria.